Hola, soy Carrie Stefancic, representante de Global Foundation for Democracy and Development y Fundación Global Democracia y Desarrollo, antes de ECOSOC. Estoy aquí con dos personas del gobierno de República Dominicana, un representante de Honduras y un representante de Antigua y Barbados. Muy bien, bienvenidos. Gracias por estar aquí. Licenciado Gagan, en su declaración durante la reunión superior de ECOSOC con las instituciones de Bretton Woods, la Organización Mundial de Comercio y UNCTAD, usted criticó las conclusiones del informe 2009 del Banco Mundial. ¿Podría usted hablarnos más sobre esto?
Como dijo Sudán cuando habló de parte del grupo de 77 hoy, de que tenemos que tener una crítica, una autocrítica de las instituciones de Bretton Woods, pero también una crítica de parte de nosotros. El mismo Banco Mundial dijo que nosotros somos representantes de ustedes tienen las acciones en el Banco Mundial. Entonces, creo que nosotros tenemos que tener ese tipo de diálogo, que es una crítica. Y el punto que yo mencioné hoy fue que el informe, que se llama Informe Global de Monitoreo de 2009, tiene que analizar más, de una manera más profunda, el concepto del crecimiento. Porque como países como nosotros, que hemos logrado niveles significativos de crecimiento, también hemos sufrido de las alzas de los precios de los productos básicos, que es una parte fundamental, una parte clave de la crisis financiera global que estamos viviendo, que el Banco Mundial llama la crisis triple.
What are the most innovative ideas in the debate about how to mitigate the impacts of the financial crisis here in the United Nations?
It is a crisis which is affecting all the countries, not just a subgroup of countries. So the most important thing, and it has taken us about a year to get that to be recognized, that the crisis has to be addressed in the United Nations. The most important thing I saw today was the report by the Bank and Fund, which says that we have a development crisis. So I think that is accepting it and recognizing it at that level is perhaps the most important thing. We have to deal with some of the immediate requirements, and among those immediate requirements be the importance of the kind of funding which can allow developing countries to provide counter-cyclical support to their activities. The crisis which has real structural underpinnings and structural roots. And it is a crisis which is in the context of other crises like the climate change crisis, like the food crisis and so forth.
How this financial crisis is going to affect developing countries to achieve the Millennium Development Goal, which was something that Mr. Gagan in his statement emphasized. And I think that not only for a country like the Dominican, this financial crisis is such a great concern, but also for least developed country. And I think that the fact that we all have recognized here at the UN that the financial global architecture that exists right now must be revised.
Embajador Romero, in your opinion, did you feel that the debate adequately voiced the concern of middle-income countries?
Esta crisis nace en países desarrollados y tiene su mayor impacto en los países en vía de desarrollo. De la misma manera, los países en vía de desarrollo como los nuestros están pasando un momento muy difícil en el cual los proyectos de desarrollo social, económico, alimentarios que están sufriendo por esta crisis, hay que buscar una solución inmediata.
We need to be careful that we don't get stuck in the same arguments that we have been making, or that developing countries like us have been making since 2002. even constant calls for more aid, for commitments to ODA levels that were previously committed by donor nations. And I think not only should we not get stuck in these same arguments, but we need to harness this crisis. As I said in there, this is a once in a lifetime, once in a century opportunity to put forth a sustainability agenda, a social justice agenda, a poverty eradication agenda. And I think what is happening now is really three things. We're trying to address the crisis in the short term. We need liquidity now. Countries need as the World Bank representative, when he presented the report, said, developing countries need sufficient resources to mitigate external shocks. So first off, we're trying to mitigate. We're trying to find the credit that you mentioned. Two, we're trying to address long-term issues that created the crisis. Excessive speculation in financial markets, credit default swaps, the packaging of risk on Wall Street that was exported to others without having sufficient capital backup, which were called credit default swaps, the subprime crisis, lending money to families in countries like the United States and others who don't even have the resources. So we're trying to deal with the underlying causes of the crisis, which were long-term. And then third, what I think we're discussing here is the long-term problems. For example, Africa or Sudan mentioned today that the shares in the World Bank of Africa are only 2.3%. That's hardly not, that's not representative of Africa. So we're trying to deal with these long-term accumulated problems. And I think what we need to do is we all need to be conscious of the short-term mitigation, the long-term underlying causes of this crisis, which have been, a decade's worth or more of deregulation of financial markets, and then these accumulated problems of making our international financial institutions more representative. President Fernandez mentioned in his speech, we need to ask ourselves why the World Bank is always led by an American, and why is the International Monetary Fund always led by European? But I think we need to have a plan and be conscious of these three approaches and really harness, as you say, from a Caribbean, from a developing country, from a Central American perspective when this conference comes in June, and know exactly how we're going to harness this big problem that we have to leapfrog and really get the back on course towards achieving the Millennium Development Goals.
I'd like to thank all four of you for taking the time out of your day to come and speak to us. It's been a highly interesting and enriching discussion, and we hope to continue this discussion with you at a later time. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your Excellency. Thank you so much.